Years ago, a friend of mine was working at a camera and photo shop that was closing down. Because of that, the staff was allowed to use the store's photo printer for free until it ran out of ink. My friend told me that he could print me one big picture, anything I wanted, and mail it to me from Scotland to Sweden. Instantly, I started scouring the internet for the perfect picture, and I found it. I got back to my friend saying that I had found the perfect image, and as he promised, it was printed and sent to me. When it arrived, I went to IKEA and bought a frame for it, and then I hung it on my wall above my computer. I had it there for about 3 years, then I moved to another town, and it was too much of a hassle to bring with me. Since I've moved from my hometown, I left it with my brother. The will to create this video comes only out of love for this game, and my ultimate goal is to try to have you look at Assassin's Creed in a perhaps more positive way than what you've done before. The issue that will stick around in this video is ultimately that what I'm describing as good is just my personal opinion. During all of this, I'll try to be objective, and I've tried seeing the ups and downs with the game, and I'm talking about them from my point of view, but ultimately, these are just opinions. Now, before we get started, I would just like to show you this picture my friend got me. Hold on a second. Okay, I've got my camera, now let's go check it out. We're almost there now. Okay, here we go. Yeah, don't mind that guy. There we go. Okay, that's enough. I believe that opinions' validity are limited unless you know the person behind them. So who am I in this case, and what kind of person am I when it comes to video games? I am Guld Fisk, and these are my opinions. The other writers may or may not agree. When I pick a game to play, I value quality over playing things just because they are new. For example, I still play Warcraft 3 and its custom maps. My favorite Elder Scrolls game is Morrowind, and I usually don't bother with the HD remakes of old games, but rather play the original game to experience a game that was so good it warranted an HD remake in the first place. I try to have some patience when it comes to playing video games, because I usually realize that once I've chosen a game, I would want to see it all the way through. I also believe we put a bigger pressure on media in general to hook us from our initial impression, and if it doesn't, or if we think it won't, we're more likely to not give it a go or finish it at all. I try not to let games' age affect me. People often say that certain games haven't aged well, and this is what I try to avoid feeling. To some extent, however, it's impossible. But nonetheless, I try not to judge a game only by saying that it hasn't aged well, but instead I try to find out what I actually find problematic with the game. This video is intended to be a review and analysis of Assassin's Creed. Now, some people who review games might mention the music as one part, the combat as one part, the story as one, and how the game handles and so on separately. I'm not going to do it like that. Instead, I'm going to use the concept of story/narration, setting, and gameplay as my springboard, which I will judge the different aspects of Assassin's Creed. Now, what do I mean by these words? The story, as I will call it, are the plot, how the characters are written. Things like quests fall under this category as well. The story is the red thread that leads the player through the game in regards to a main quest, and if there are side quests, those are small stories within the big overall story. Under setting, we have things like the environment, how the world looks and how the world feels, and the music as well. NPCs can be part of the story or the setting, and even both depending on their purpose. The setting encapsulates the player at all times when playing the game. If I were to try to define setting, I would call it the passive world elements. Lastly, gameplay includes things that affect gameplay. This is, for example, how the game is controlled, how the control feels, and how the combat works. Generally, when something is controlled by the player, That's usually part of the gameplay. But certain things that you sometimes can't control are still part of the gameplay, like how the camera is angled and how it moves. If the story is the red thread, the gameplay is the way the player moves forwards on this red thread. The concept of story, setting and gameplay are fundamentally difficult to give perfect definitions of. It's quite easy to have a general feeling of what the setting of a game consists of, but if you try to create a hard sharp border to separate it from the story, you're likely to run into problems. Making this distinction, however, isn't the purpose of this video, so the edges of these three concepts will remain blurred, for now. Instead, I'll quickly illustrate them with some examples. Morrowind is a game that does the setting and story very well. The setting is good because the world feels believable, the environment is convincing and the characters react in a predictable, to their world, manner. The story contains multiple conflicts between different groups. Things that happens in the main quest can be interpreted in multiple ways that both seem valid. The stories of the different factions are not separate from each other, but they intertwine. The factions acknowledge the other's existence, and things you do for one faction against another affects your reputation for both factions. What Morrowind does so well is erase the limit between the setting and story, making the world feel even more alive. What factions you join affect how people like you. Being famous from doing certain quests can change how certain NPCs talk to you, and so on. Its gameplay, however, is very limited, with pretty bad combat and clunky AI. If you want to know more about setting, or why I like Morrowind, I would check out Mr. Beatong's video TUN The Elder Scrolls 6 Utopia.
I want to use the Elder Scrolls games to talk about the importance of setting. And to talk about the importance of setting, I'm going to kick it old school. Early 19th century old school.
A game that focuses almost entirely on gameplay and barely has any setting and no story would be Raise the Sun. The environment is very simplistic with basic colors and simple shapes. The only purpose of that game is to go as far as possible and score as many points as possible. Games that focuses heavily on setting would be games that are jokingly called walking simulators. One of these games would be Dear Esther. Of course, in that game you have letters that provide some story, but the gameplay is minimal and basically only serves to get you around the island. One game that did all three of these really well is Half-Life 2. There you have the setting of City 17, the Combine that make you feel like it's a police state, the citizens of City 17 that is constantly in fear for their life. There, the story consists of the main plot that you follow Gordon through, and the development of the main characters that interact with you and with each other. Finally, there's the gameplay that, at least for its time, was revolutionary. When I play Half-Life 2 these days, the setting and story are still phenomenal, but I've just been so influenced by other games that the gameplay isn't up to par anymore. While the combat is alright, the puzzles aren't challenging or fun, and regarding the... So, now that you know how I view games, it's time to put Assassin's Creed under these three lenses, beginning with the story. The story in Assassin's Creed is ultimately its biggest strength. In Assassin's Creed, you play as Altair. You are a part of a brotherhood or creed of assassins, and you are tasked by Al-Mualim, your leader, to kill people in Acre, Jerusalem, and Damascus. Before you kill your main targets, you visit the local creed bureaus and investigate how you will go on about actually fulfilling your task. In the beginning of the game, Altair commits a mistake. He is very arrogant.
This is not the way. My way is better.
Acts like a prick, disregards his colleagues and doesn't do what he's supposed to do. This results in one of the assassins dying and another one being severely injured.
Where are Melik and Kadar?
Dead. No! Not dead.
Melik?
I still live at least.
And your brother?
Gone. Because of you!
This leads to your demotion and stripping of your gear.
I should kill you for the pain you've brought upon us. Malik thinks it only fair. Your life in exchange for his brother's. But this would be a waste of my time and your talents. you'll see you have been stripped of your possessions, your rank as well. You are a novice, a child once more.
This beginning is clever in mainly three ways. It introduces us to how Altair is as a person, it teaches the player about the Creed in a natural way, and it gives a reason for you as a player to begin your journey in the Creed from the beginning. Altair supposedly knows a lot about the Creed, you as a player don't. But by committing this mistake, you get to see how Altair is as a person. The lesson he is given that would have prevented this mistake informs you as a player about the Creed. This allows you as a player to start over from the beginning with Altair, who is already a master at fighting, climbing and remaining unseen.
I did as I was asked.
No, you did as you pleased. Malik has told me of the arrogance you displayed, your disregard for our ways.
What are you doing?
There are rules. We are nothing if we do not abide by the Assassin's Creed. 3 simple tenets, which you seem to forget. I will remind you. First and foremost, stay your blade.
From the flesh of an innocent. I know.
And stay your tongue, unless I give you leave to use it. If you are so familiar with this tenet, then why did you kill the old man inside the temple? He was innocent. He did not need to die. Your insolence knows no bounds. Make humble your heart, child, or I swear I'll tear it from you with my own hands. The second tenet is that which gives us strength. Hide in plain sight. Let the people mask you such that you become one with the crowd. Do you remember? Because as I hear it, you chose to expose yourself, drawing attention before you'd struck. The third and final tenet, the worst of all your betrayals. Never compromise the Brotherhood. Its meaning should be obvious. Your actions must never bring harm upon us, direct or indirect.
As you leave Masyaf, the assassin's high quarter, to start working your way up, your mistakes has left traces in the world. The people in the bureaus all feel like real people who have different opinions of you, and they react in different ways to what you've done.
A few of your brothers were here earlier, in fact. Oof, if you'd heard the things they said, I'm certain you'd have slain them where they stood.
It's quite all right.
Yes, you've never been one for the Creed, have you?
Is that all? Safety and peace, Malik.
Your presence here deprives me of both.
So you continue your job, and the people you kill make Altair think about what's going on. He wonders about their motives, and why they do as they do, believing what they're doing is right.
Be at peace now. Their words can no longer do harm.
Why have you done this?
You stole money from those you claim to lead, sent it away for some unknown purpose. I want to know where it's gone and why.
Look at me. My very nature is an affront to the people I ruled. And these noble robes did little more than to muffle their shouts of hate.
So this is about vengeance, then?
No, not vengeance, but my conscience. How could I finance a war in service to the same god that calls me an abomination?
If you do not serve Salah ad-Din's cause, then whose?
In time, you'll come to know them. I think perhaps you already do.
Then why hide? And why these dark deeds?
Is it so different from your own work? You take the lives of men and women, strong in the conviction that their deaths will improve the lots of those left behind. A minor evil for a greater good? We are the same.
No, we are nothing alike.
Ah, but I see it in your eyes. You doubt. You cannot stop us. We will have our new world.
When he asks Al-Mualim about this, he isn't given a proper answer, and Al-Mualim just dances around the question.
Each man I've slain has confessed strange words to me. They are without regret. Even in death they seem confident of their success. Though they do not admit it directly, there is a tie that binds them. I'm sure of it.
There is a difference, Altair, between what we are told to be true and what we see to be true. Most men do not bother to make the distinction. It is simpler that way. But as an assassin, it is your nature to notice, to question.
Then what is it that connects these men?
But as an assassin, it is also your duty to still these thoughts and trust in your master. For there can be no true peace without order, and order requires authority.
You speak in circles, Master. You commend me for being aware, then ask me not to be. Which is it?
The question will be answered when you no longer need to ask it.
For the time, he is content with this, but a couple of missions later Altair gets back and demands to have answers to his questions. Al-Mualim tells Altair that everyone that they've killed so far have been Templars. At the same time, Altair is told that the Templars seek conquest, that they are selfish and will destroy anyone who opposes them. I covered this in just a few sentences, but some time has actually passed in the game. You've ridden to all of the cities once and you've seen that Altair has changed. He has become less demanding, but instead respects the others in his creed. You get a sense that he's realized his mistake and humbled a bit in the process.
I sense your thoughts are elsewhere. Speak your mind.
Each man I'm sent to kill speaks cryptic words to me. Each time I come to you and ask for answers. Each time you give only riddles in exchange, but no more.
Who are you to say no more?
I'm the one who does the killing. If you want it to continue, you'll speak straight with me for once.
Tread carefully, boy. I do not like your tone.
And I do not like your deception.
I have offered you a chance to restore your lost honor.
Not lost. Taken. By you. And then you've sent me to fetch it again like some damn dog.
It seems I'll need to find another. A shame. You showed great potential.
I think if you had another, you'd have sent him long ago. You said the answer to my question would arise when I no longer needed to ask it. So I will not ask. I demand you tell me what binds these men.
What you say is true. These men are connected by a blood oath not unlike our own.
Who are they?
Non nobis, domine non nobis.
Templars.
Now you see the true reach of Robert de Sable.
All of these men, leaders of cities, commanders of armies.
All pledge allegiance to his cause.
Their works are not meant to be viewed on their own, are they? But as a whole, what do they desire?
Conquest. They seek the Holy Land not in the name of God, but for themselves.
What of Richard? Salahuddin?
Any who oppose the Templars will be destroyed. Be assured they have the means to accomplish it.
Then they must be stopped.
That is why we do our work, Altair. To ensure a future free of such things.
Why did you hide the truth from me?
That you might pierce the veil yourself. Like any task, knowledge precedes action. Information learned is more valuable than information given. Besides, your recent behavior had not inspired much confidence.
I see.
So while the Templars want conquest, the Assassins want peace. I'm going to spoil things ahead, but Al-Mualim later changes his thoughts on this and say that both Templars and Assassin actually want peace, but their methods vary. This is where the phrase "nothing is true, everything is permitted" comes from. It's the Assassin's way of seeing the world.
I have a question for you.
Of course.
What is the truth?
We place faith in ourselves. We see the world the way it really is, and hope that one day all mankind might see the same.
What is the world, then?
An illusion. One which we can either submit to, as most do, or transcend.
What is it to transcend?
To recognize nothing is true and everything is permitted. That laws arise not from divinity but reason. I understand now that our creed does not command us to be free. It commands us to be wise.
Do you see now why the Templars are a threat?
Whereas we would dispel the illusion, they would use it to rule.
Yes.
These dialogues with Al-Mualim, the people in the bureaus, and his victims are personally the most satisfying thing to experience with the game. Al-Mualim becomes Altair's and the player's guide, and the dialogues with him are what I look forward to the most in this game. I spoke earlier about Altair changing, but let me show you an example. After your initial failure, one of the assassins who was there working with you, Malik, loses his brother and his arm. He is the leader of the bureau in Jerusalem. I will now play some clips from the dialogues they both have. At first, Malik is obviously hostile towards Altair, and Altair is quite arrogant himself.
What do you want?
Al-Mualim has asked.
Ask that you perform some menial task in an effort to redeem yourself. So be out with it.
Tell me what you can about the one they call Talal.
It is your duty to locate and assassinate the man, Altair, not mine.
You'd do well to assist me. His death benefits the entire land.
Do you deny his death benefits you as well?
Such things do not concern you.
Your actions very much concern me.
Then don't help me. I'll find him myself.
Wait. It won't do having you stumble about the city like a blind man. Better you know where to begin your search.
I'm listening.
I can think of 3 places. South of here in the markets that line the border between the Muslim and Jewish districts. To the north near the mosque of this district, and east in front of St. Anne's Church, close to the Babariha Gate.
Is that everything?
It's enough to get you started, and more than you deserve. Altair! Wonderful to see you return to us. And how fared the mission?
The deed is done. Talal is dead.
Oh, I know. In fact, the entire city knows! Have you forgotten the meaning of subtlety?
A skilled assassin ensures his work is noticed by the many.
No! A skilled assassin maintains control of his environment.
We can argue the details all you'd like, Malik. But the fact remains I've accomplished the task set to me by Al-Mualim.
Go then. Return to the old man. Let us see with whom he sides.
You and I are on the same side, Malik.
The second time you are in Jerusalem, Malik is still not happy to see you, but he isn't openly hostile.
Safety and peace, Malik.
Word that the city was possessed of either. Why do you trouble me today?
Al-Mualim has marked Majduddin for death. What can you tell me about him?
Salahuddin's absence has left the city without a proper leader, and Majduddin has appointed himself to play the part. Fear and intimidation get him what he wants. He has no true claim to the position.
That ends today.
You speak too readily. This is not some slaver we're discussing. He rules Jerusalem and is well protected because of it. I suggest you plan your attack carefully. Get to better know your prey.
With your help, I will. Where would you have me begin my search?
What's this? You're actually asking for my assistance instead of demanding it. I'm impressed.
Be out with it.
As you wish.
The third time you're in Jerusalem is before you're going to assassinate Robert de Sable, the last Templar according to Al-Mualim. By then, the tone has very much changed. You've been in Acre and Jerusalem possibly 4 times since you last saw Malik. You've spoken to Al-Mualim about the Templars and learned more about them. You've shown your good intentions, and the change you've gone through have surely spread throughout the Creed.
Safety and peace, Altair.
Upon you as well, brother.
Seems fate has a funny way with things.
So it's true then. Robert de Sable is in Jerusalem.
I've seen the knights myself.
Only misfortune follows that man. If he's here, it's because he intends ill. I won't give him the chance to act.
Do not let vengeance cloud your thoughts, brother. We both know no good can come of that.
I have not forgotten. You have nothing to fear. I do not seek revenge, but knowledge.
Truly you are not the man I once knew.
My work has taught me many things, revealed secrets to me. But there are still pieces of this puzzle I do not possess.
What do you mean?
All the men I've laid to rest have worked together, united by this man. Robert has designs upon the land. This much I know for certain. But how and why, when and where, these things remain out of reach.
Crusaders and Saracens working together?
They are none of these things, but something else. Templars.
The Templars are a part of the Crusader army.
Or so they'd like King Richard to believe. No, their only allegiance is to Robert de Sable and some mad idea that they will stop the war.
You spin a strange tale.
You have no idea, Malik. But tell me where they've been seen. I should be after him before he slips away.
3 places I can say for certain. West of here, near both a guard tower and a hospital. And to the southwest, at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. See what you can learn. I will do the same.
I'll be quick as I can.
Stay safe, my friend. You've the scent of success about you, brother.
I've learned much about our enemy.
Share your knowledge then. Let us see what can be done with it.
Robert and his Templars walked the city. They've come to pay their respects to Majd ad-Din. They'll attend his funeral, which means so will I.
What is this that Templars would attend his funeral?
I have yet to divine their true intentions, though I'll have a confession in time. The citizens themselves are divided. Many call for their lives. Still others insist that they are here to parley, to make peace.
Peace?
I told you. The others I've slain have said as much to me.
That would make them our allies. And yet we killed them.
Make no mistake, we are nothing like these men. Though their goal sounds noble, the means by which they'd achieve it are not. At least, that's what Al-Mualim told me.
So what is your plan?
I'll attend the funeral and confront Robert.
The sooner the better.
Before playing the clip of Altair and Malik just before you're going to kill Robert, I'll show you this clip of Al-Mualim and Altair. I talked earlier about the Templars also wanting peace, but their methods from the assassin vary, and now it's time to get it explained.
We are close, Altair. Robert de Sable is now all that stands between us and victory. It is his mouth gives the orders. His hand pays the gold. With him dies the knowledge of the Templar treasure, and any threat it might pose.
I still don't understand how a simple bit of treasure could cause so much chaos.
The Peace of Eden is temptation given form. Merely look at what it's done to Robert. Once he tasted of its power, the thing consumed him. He saw not a dangerous weapon to be destroyed, but a tool. One that would help him realize his life's ambition.
He dreamed of power then.
Yes and no. He dreamed, still dreams, like us, of peace.
But this is a man who sought to see the Holy Land consumed by war.
No, Altair. How can you not see when you're the one that opened my eyes to this?
What do you mean?
What do he and his followers want? A world in which all men are united. I do not despise his goal. I share it. But I take issue with the means. Peace is something to be learned, to be understood, to be embraced.
He would force it.
And rob us of our free will in the process.
Strange, to think of him in this way.
Never harbor hate for your victims, Altair. Such thoughts are poison, and will cloud your judgment.
Could he not be convinced, then, to end his mad quest?
I spoke to him in my way, through you. What was each killing if not a message? But he has chosen to ignore us.
Then there's only one thing left to do.
Fortune favor your blade, brother.
Malik, before I go, there's something I should say.
Be out with it.
I've been a fool.
Normally I'd make no argument, but what is this? What are you talking about?
All this time, I never told you I was sorry. Too damn proud. You lost your arm because of me. Lost Qadar. You had every right to be angry.
I do not accept your apology.
I understand.
No, you don't. I do not accept your apology because you are not the same man who went with me into Solomon's temple. And so you have nothing to apologize for.
Malik.
Perhaps if I had not been so envious of you, I would not have been so careless myself. I'm just as much to blame.
Don't say such things.
We are one. As we share the glory of our victories, so too should we share the pain of our defeat. In this way, we grow closer. We grow stronger.
Thank you, brother.
Rest if you need to, Altair, that you might be ready for what lies ahead.
So some of you might think the jump between the second time and the last time you're in Jerusalem is a bit sharp. Suddenly they are very friendly with each other. I didn't really think about it the time I played it, because so much time had passed between the visits, so I had somewhat forgotten the bad tone. If you think this change is out of place or not is up to you. However, I think it's possible to say that now it's finally the real deal. Both have realized the importance of the situation and decided to bury the hatchet between them. They are sort of like the rivalry between Ash and Gary in Pokemon. When shit gets real, they stick together. Altair isn't a person that easily fits into a mold. He doesn't listen blindly to the people around him. He has his own will, which he clearly shows. He is seeking the truth and truly believes in the mission of the Creed. He doesn't want to be taken for a fool who will blindly listen to anyone. The search for information comes from a will to do good, and while it might be somewhat arrogant to demand answers from Al-Mualim, it had to be done. Now Altair treats Rafik as Rafik treats him back, but ultimately Altair apologizes. So on one point the personality traits of Altair are established. He is good technically, and is very determined and disciplined. This doesn't really change throughout the game. However, he changes a lot when it comes to how well he interacts with the other people in the Creed. He goes from being arrogant, demeaning and very proud of himself, to humble, respectful and kind. During everything that Altair goes through, Al-Mualim is present. Al-Mualim becomes not only Altair's, but your guide as well. You've heard what the Templars are saying.
A blockade by sea to keep the fool kings and queens from sending reinforcements once we
Conquered the Holy Land?
freed it, you fool, from the tyranny of faith.
Freedom? You worked to overthrow cities, control men's minds, murdered any who spoke against you.
I followed my orders, believing in my cause, same as you.
And the questions Altair are asking Al-Mualim are good questions.
But they cannot succeed in their mission.
Why is that?
Their plans depend upon the Templar treasure, the Peace of Eden. But we hold it now, and they cannot hope to achieve their goals without it.
What is this treasure?
It is temptation.
It's just a piece of silver.
Look at it.
What am I supposed to see?
This piece of silver cast out Adam and Eve. It turned staves into snakes, parted and closed the Red Sea. Ares used it to start the Trojan War, and with it a poor carpenter turned water into wine.
It seems rather plain for all the power you claim it has. How does it work?
He who holds it commands the hearts and minds of whoever looks upon it, whoever tastes of it, as they say.
Then Gagne's men?
An experiment. Herbs used to simulate its effects, to be ready for when they held it.
You go to Al-Mualim to progress the game, but also to discuss and learn about what's going on.
King Richard, emboldened by his victory at Acre, prepares to move south towards Jerusalem. Salah-ad-Din is surely aware of this, and so he gathers his men before the broken citadel of Arsuf.
Would you have me kill them both then? End their war before it begins in earnest?
No. To do so would scatter their forces and subject the realm to the bloodlust of 10,000 aimless warriors.
The explanations you receive make you feel that you're doing the right thing. Sometimes you're not given straight answers as a way for Al-Mualim to teach you, but the fact that you're not given complete answers also serve a deeper purpose. It both shows that Al-Mualim is trying to teach you things, but it also sows the seed of mistrust between the two. Why does it seem like the man who's supposed to be your master is withholding information from you? Why is he so interested in the Templar treasure when he has no intent on using it? Altair is understandably frustrated, and you as a player become frustrated too, also wanting to have answers to Altair's question. The relationship between Altair and Al-Mualim is cleverly written. Altair is the one asking Al-Mualim the questions, but really, the questions asked are those of a mindful player. It's like yours and Altair's interests are aligning through the conversations you have with Al-Mualim, which in turn makes you feel stronger for Altair. These feelings you as a player develop for Altair are achieved in one way, by making it very clear that Altair is simply a person. He is very good technically as is recognized by the other people in the Creed, but he is initially arrogant and liked by some for simply his skill, but disliked by some due to not being a very likable person. He has faults like everyone, he struggles with understanding the bigger picture and is too proud to initially admit his faults. All of these things makes him relatable. When he speaks with Al-Mualim, it's obvious that while he might not be the nicest person, his thoughts aren't stupid, and through his questions and the things he sees in the Templars, he grows as a person into becoming likable. In the beginning of the game, Altair says,
It matters not how we complete our task, only that it's done.
I think this shaped his behavior towards people. He doesn't care if he has to force people to do something, or if they will do it out of their free will, out of liking or believing in his cause. But the more he learns about the Creed and what differentiates them from the Templars, he realizes that the ends are just one part of the picture, and the means you reach them can ultimately be more important. I'd like to show you the clip of Abu Lakud's conversation with Altair again, where you can see that Altair isn't really sure what's right or what's wrong.
No, we are nothing alike.
Ah, but I see it in your eyes. You doubt.
And later, Altair is taught that
I do not despise his goal. I share it. But I take issue with the means.
So, for those interested, I'll spoil the ending. Even though this game is over a decade old, I'll put up a spoiler warning for those who want to play it for themselves. Go to this point in the video to skip the ending spoilers. What ultimately happens is that Altair takes matter into his own hands for the good of the Creed. When you try to kill Robert de Sable, who is your last target in Jerusalem, it turns out he isn't there. They sent a decoy instead.
I would see your eyes before you die.
I sense you expected someone else.
What sorcery is this?
No sorcery. We knew you'd come. Robert needed to be sure he'd have time to get away.
So he flees.
We cannot deny your success. You have laid waste to our plans. First the treasure, then our men. Control of the Holy Land slipped away. But then he saw an opportunity to reclaim what has been stolen, to turn your victories to our advantage.
Al-Mualim still holds your treasure, and we've routed your army before. Whatever Robert plans, he'll fail again.
Ah, but it's not just Templars you'll contend with now.
Speak sense.
Robert rides for Asa to plead his case that Saracen and Crusader unite against the Assassins.
That will never happen. They have no reason to.
Had, perhaps. But now you've given them one. 9, in fact. The bodies you've left behind, victims on both sides. You've made the Assassins an enemy in common and ensured the annihilation of your entire order. Well done.
Not 9. 8.
What do you mean?
You were not my target. I will not take your life. You're free to go, but do not follow me.
I don't need to. You're already too late.
We'll see.
You then go to Rafik, and he suggests you return to Al-Mualim, but Altair feels that something is up.
It was a trap.
I had heard the funeral turned to chaos. What happened?
Robert de Sable was never here. He sent another in his stead. He was expecting me.
You must go to Al-Mualim.
There's no time. She told me where he's gone, what he plans. If I return to Masyaf, he might succeed. And then, I fear we'll be destroyed.
We have killed most of his men. He cannot hope to mount a proper attack. Wait, did you say she?
Yes, it was a woman. Strange, I know. But that's for another time. For now, we must focus on Robert. We may have thinned his ranks, but the man is clever. He goes to plead his case to Richard and Salah ad-Din, to unite them against the common enemy. Against us.
Surely you're mistaken. This makes no sense. These two men would never...
Oh, but they would. And we have ourselves to blame. The men I've killed, men on both sides of the conflict, men important to both leaders. Robert's plan may be ambitious, but it makes sense. And it could work.
Look, brother. Things have changed. You must return to Masyaf. We cannot act without our master's permission. It could compromise the Brotherhood. I thought you had learned this.
Stop hiding behind words, Malik. You wield the Creed and its tenets like some shield. He's keeping things from us. Important things. You were the one told me we could never know anything, only suspect. Well, I suspect this business with the Templars goes deeper. When I'm done with Robert, I will ride for Masyaf that we may have answers. But perhaps you could go now.
I cannot leave the city.
Then walk amongst its people. Seek out those who served the ones I slew. Learn what you can. You call yourself perceptive. Perhaps you'll see something I could not.
I don't know. I must think on this.
Do as you must, my friend. But it's time I ride for Arsuf. Every moment I delay, our enemy gets one step ahead of me.
Be careful, brother.
I will be. I promise.
When you get to Arsuf, it's mayhem.
Kill me!
You fight your way forward and you reach King Richard and Robert. You tell King Richard what Robert de Sable has had his people doing, and Richard doesn't disregard you as crazy because he seemed to have noticed it as well.
Hear me out. William of Montferrat. He sought to use his soldiers to take Acre by force. Gagner de Naplouse. He would use his skills to indoctrinate and control any who resisted. Sabrand. He intended to block the ports, preventing your kingdom from providing aid. They betrayed you, and they took their orders from Robert.
You expect me to believe this outlandish tale?
You knew these men, better than I. Are you truly surprised to learn of their ill intentions?
Is this true?
My liege, it is an assassin that stands before us. These creatures are masters of manipulation. Of course it isn't true.
I've no reason to deceive.
Oh, but you do. You're afraid of what will happen to your little fortress. Can it withstand the combined might of the Saracen and the Crusader armies?
My concern is for the people of the Holy Land. If I must sacrifice myself for there to be peace, so be it.
This is a strange place we find ourselves in.
To determine who's telling the truth, King Richard lets you duel Robert.
It is a difficult decision, one I cannot make alone. I must leave it in the hands of one wiser than I.
Thank you.
No, Robert, not you.
Then who?
The Lord.
The time for games is ended.
It's done then. Your schemes, like you, are put to rest.
You know nothing of schemes. You're but a puppet. He betrayed you, boy. Just as he betrayed me.
Speak sense, Templar. Or not at all.
9 men he sent you to kill, yes? The 9 who guarded the treasure's secret.
What of it?
It wasn't 9 who found the treasure, assassin. Not 9, but 10.
A 10th? None may live who carry the secret. Give me his name.
Oh, but you know him well. And I doubt very much you'd take his life as willingly as you've taken mine.
Who?
It is your master, Al-Mualim.
But he is not a Templar.
Did you never wonder how it is he knew so much? Where to find us, how many we numbered, what we aspired to attain?
He is the master of the assassins.
Oui, master of lies. You and I just 2 more pawns in his grand game. And now, with my death, only you remain. Do you think he'll let you live, knowing what you do?
I've no interest in the treasure.
Ah, but he does. The only difference between your master and I is that he did not want to share.
No.
Ironic, isn't it? That I, your greatest enemy, kept you safe from harm. But now you've taken my life, and in the process, ended your own.
You go back to Masyaf and find that everyone has been brainwashed.
What are you talking about?
Towards the light.
Speak sense.
There is only what the Master shows us.
You meet Rafik, who tells you he will help you.
You picked a fine time to arrive.
So it seems.
Guard yourself well, friend. Al-Mualim has betrayed us.
Yes. Betrayed his Templar allies as well.
How do you know?
After we spoke, I returned to the ruins beneath Solomon's temple. Robert had kept a journal, filled its pages with revelations. What I read there broke my heart. But it also opened my eyes. You were right, Altair. All along our master has used us. We were not meant to save the Holy Land, but deliver it to him. He must be stopped.
Be careful, Malik. What he's done to the others, he'll do to us given the chance. You must stay far from him.
What would you propose? My blade arm is still strong and my men remain my own. It would be a mistake not to use us.
Distract these thralls then. Assault the fortress from behind. If you can draw their attention away from me, I might reach Al-Mualim.
I will do as you ask, Dai.
The men we face, their minds are not their own. If you can avoid killing them.
Yes. Though he has betrayed the tenets of the Creed, it does not mean we must as well. I'll do what I can.
It's all I ask. Safety and peace, my friend.
Your presence here will deliver us both.
Afterwards, you face off and kill Al-Mualim.
Impossible. The student does not defeat the teacher.
الشيء واقع مطلق بل كل ممكن.
So it seems. You have won then. Go and claim your prize.
You held fire in your hand, old man. It should have been destroyed.
Destroy the only thing capable of ending the Crusades and creating true peace? Never.
Then I will.
We'll see about that. I applied my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also was a chasing after wind, for in much wisdom is much grief. And he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. Destroy it! Destroy it as you said you would.
I can't.
Yes, you can, Altair. But you won't.
This part is very interesting because Altair has been proven not to feel the temptation for the device earlier.
Look at it.
Which Al-Mualim reminds us of.
Tell me, Master, why did you not make me like the other assassins? Why allow me to retain my mind?
Who you are and what you do are twined too tight together. To rob you of one would have deprived me of the other. And those Templars had to die. But the truth is, I did try. In my study, when I showed you the treasure. But you are not like the others. You saw through the illusion.
Illusion?
That's all it's ever done. This Templar treasure, this piece of Eden, this word of God.
But now Altair isn't so sure anymore, since he says he can't destroy it. This is exactly what I talked about, how Altair feels like a normal person. He might be disciplined, feels strongly for the Creed and its goals, and he will try his best to achieve those, but in the end, he is still a human. What do I think of this ending? I think the way it tells the story of Altair is excellent. His humanity shines through, and you can't really guess what he's decided to do with the piece of Eden after the game has ended. It's worth mentioning that after you kill Al-Mualim, you can still hear him. I'm not sure if this is supposed to symbolize the strong connection that Altair has with him as a guiding figure, and he is just imagining the voice, or if Al-Mualim has somehow taken control over the piece of Eden, and in a way continues to live through it. I suppose you can speculate about both interpretations, and while I would like a definitive answer, I'm very content with the feeling that both could be plausible. This ending obviously leaves room for follow-up games, but since the story of Altair and Al-Mualim was finished, I don't mind that the player is left at this point with some unanswered questions. This is really all I have to say about the ending. One aspect I haven't talked about regarding the story is Desmond Miles, the character who is inside the Animus. This part is sometimes overlooked, but I thought it would be interesting to mention. The entire game you play is actually just Desmond reliving what has already happened. He is simply an observer of history. This is a very clever way to allow for the player to play as Altair, and actually makes the rules set up by the game make sense. Since Altair follows the Creed's tenets, he didn't kill civilians, so if you as a player do it, it doesn't match up with history and you desynchronize from Altair's memory. If you as a player die, you desynchronize because Altair didn't die, at least not where you as a player die, and so on. I could talk more about the story of Desmond, but I won't, seeing as how it was a great setup, but that's unfortunately all it was. After the first Assassin's Creed, the story of Desmond became very silly. That's all I have to say regarding the story. The second biggest part of Assassin's Creed is its setting. As I explained earlier, the setting is crudely defined as the passive world elements. So what is so good about the setting in Assassin's Creed? First, the basic that everyone knows about. You're in 3 Holy Land cities involved in the Third Crusade: Acre, Jerusalem and Damascus. These cities feel convincing. They're full of people who are minding their own business, there are drunk people, there are beggars, and the people all look different. The guards react to you if you punch people and if you act suspicious when they're looking for you. This everyone already knows, so what do I have to add? There's one thing that people sometimes overlook, one important fact. In Assassin's Creed, you are, surprise, an assassin. You're a master of climbing, blending in and disposing of a single person in a very discreet way due to your hidden blade. I think this simple fact is overlooked in these games. People are given a sword and they quickly realize that Altair is good at fighting, so that must be the purpose of the game, right? I don't think so. Look at the trailer, which encapsulates the feeling of Assassin's Creed really well. Altair assassinates a supposedly important person. He is then chased around the city, climbing up on the roofs, until ultimately he can get away unseen by blending in with a bunch of scholars without killing another person. This trailer suggests several things: that Altair is outnumbered, that he is skilled, and that he planned his actions very carefully by ending up at the church just as the priests walked out. The trailer actually shows how you go through the game. You plan your assassinations, but they don't always work out perfectly. You usually have to adapt to get the job done. Then, as you kill your target, you run away, preferably to a rooftop. I think this way of playing the game is supported in regards to how the world is built. On the ground there's a lot of people, so running around there is hard because you'll eventually run into someone and tumble to the ground. Or if you stick around to fight, you'll probably attract more patrolling guards and ultimately have an entire army against you. Now this isn't really a problem in the game, but in reality it would be. Then, if you look on the roofs, you can see that there's no civilians, very few guards, and some hiding spots. This is the place to be. This is the mentality I have when playing Assassin's Creed. I'm not a one-man army. I don't have a plan to kill everyone I meet. I just have a plan to kill the person I'm tasked with killing, and the rest I try to avoid. This is how I immerse myself in the story. When I'm playing the game, I'm an assassin during the Third Crusade. I'm a part of the world and I'm a part of the Creed, and that's why I don't want to leave piles of bodies in the street or attract every guard in town. I want to remain hidden, because that's what I believe the Creed is about. I live the story that Altair lives in the game, and I want Altair to succeed, and I believe he does if I play the way I do. Finally, we get to the elephant in the room, the gameplay. The gameplay seems to be debated. Some call it the only redeeming factor of the game, while others has issues with it. I understand that when you're playing a game, you're taking everything into consideration, and things such as the gameplay are very hard to overlook since you need to actually play the game to progress. So what elements are there to the gameplay? Assassin's Creed without climbing wouldn't be the same game. Climbing is a very big part of the game, and being able to run around on the rooftops is what I think is the most important gameplay feature. If I had to remove either combat or climbing from Assassin's Creed, I would remove combat. I've heard that people can think the climbing in this game can be slow, but I think it works to the game's advantage if the climbing is somewhat slow. If you're being chased, you're naturally trying to make it to the rooftops. But if the climbing is slow, you'll have to choose the moment you start climbing up carefully, otherwise you're just gonna get pelted with rocks or struck with a sword. This might surprise some people, but it's finally time to say it. I strongly believe that combat is to be avoided at all costs. Like I explained when I was talking about the setting, the combat isn't the purpose of this game, it's to be an assassin. Sure, the combat looks cool and can be somewhat fun, but really, there are multiple instances when combat is punished. You have the quest when you assassinate archers or other targets. If you're seen, you have to start over. When you're doing your actual assassinations, you can't just go around hitting everyone with swords until you're done, or it will take much longer and be harder to finish your job. I think it's unfortunate that you have citizens being pestered by guards, and the only way to take care of them is actually by entering into combat. But this is about the only time I actually try to fight on a fair basis. The same with the escort missions. You will almost always have to enter into combat during those, which is a shame. Another issue with my standpoint is that just in the end of the game, you are blocked by a visible, invisible wall until you've killed what amounts to a small army. Apart from these times, I think that entering into combat is not the best solution. It simply feels like something I shouldn't do as an assassin. So, what do I think of the actual combat? This is largely touched upon elsewhere, but my opinion is that I think it's fine. One thing I did when I was playing Assassin's Creed for this video was to not overuse counterattack, but instead try to use dodge, to make the combat more fun. However, it's difficult, but it makes the combat a bit more fluent because you're not just waiting for counterattacks and looking at quick time events all the time. It's a bit unfortunate, but you get the dodge move a bit later in the game, so you can't really do it from the get-go. I do think that the combat would have been better if there was no counter, but instead there were different maneuvers like the dodge or grab that you could use more fluently. Not those because we have those, but the other ones. Even just a weaker counter would have been better because a lot of the combat comes to focus on that, even if you as a player don't want to, because there's not really any other efficient way to kill people. The counter also allows you to become practically invincible, something that you aren't before you're able to counter.
Concerning combats, there's a point in the game before you get the counter move and after you get the counter move. Before you get the counter move, if you get ganged up on, you just get fucked. After you get the counter move, you never lose a fight ever again. Because then it just becomes a issue of standing still, doing nothing and countering.
So the investigations, or maybe some would call them side quests, you have to do to advance seem to have people up in a fuss. Talking about them from a very strict gameplay perspective isn't really all there is to them, but admittedly some of them I can't really see making sense in the world, like running to another person or collecting flags in a trail under a certain time. But they take like 1 minute to do, so I'm not sure I see the issue here. The remaining investigation, eavesdropping, pickpocketing, interrogations and target assassinations are good ways to have the gameplay mixed with the storytelling. Regarding the escort missions, my only issue is that it almost forces you to enter into combat. I find the investigations interesting to do because while I'm doing them, I'm learning about the man I'm supposed to assassinate and what kind of person he is, or how I can go about doing my mission. You also get a feeling of how the rest of the Creed thinks about Altair, since you have a brief conversation with every investigation giver every time you do an investigation. From a strict gameplay perspective, these investigations might seem repetitive since it's just doing the same thing and it doesn't really challenge you in fun or interesting ways. But I don't view them like this, and I think there's a reason for that. They're all part of the greater scheme of having you work as an assassin. These missions are a way to mix the gathering of intelligence with gameplay. I agree that it's not done flawlessly, but since the reason I play this game is to enjoy the story, I sort of overlook these shortcomings. Just look at me gathering these flags. It took me less than a minute and I might have to do it 4 or 5 times through the entirety of the game. Is this unreasonable? I don't think so. The last part of the gameplay, the actual assassinations. These are obviously the best part of the gameplay, finding your target and disposing of him. All of the assassinations are unique and they are usually challenging, and you can do them a good way or a hard way. Here, being calm and collected is rewarded and you're able to think a lot more strategically of the gameplay compared to just regular combat, which is just muscle memory and key combinations, or the investigations, which is just doing what you usually do but follow a trail. So all in all, it seems to be a very solid game. It's well written, the setting is good and believable, and the gameplay ranges from weird investigation and decent combat to climbing tall towers and being chased through cities and rooftops. So, what are people's issue? Unfortunately, I think this game isn't remembered as one of the greats because people just didn't have enough patience to play it, and I think that some people flat out just doesn't get it. I hate using the "they just don't get it" card, but from reading reviews and comments online, it's clear that Altair seems to be mostly an arrogant, unlikable person, and the plot doesn't always seem to be that great. take this article from PC Gamer called The Assassins of Assassin's Creed, ranked from worst to best, for example. On spot number 3 we find Altair with this motivation. This was posted by the PC Gamer Newspot on Facepunch forums, and they had these things to say about Altair. While some people talk about this game in a good light, it's for other reasons than what I've described. Not saying that my reasons for liking this game or how I play it are the right reasons or ways, but the opinions being uttered in regards to why this game is bad or good seems to have very little, if any, reasons backing them up. In my search for material for this video, I think I've found one proper review briefly explaining what I'm doing right now. Another thing I believe was very influential in what people think about this game is that people just didn't have the patience.
Assassinations are a tiny percentage of the game experience, but I guess faffing about Creed doesn't have the same ring to it. The developers can't seem to grasp what it is that makes their game fun. The actual assassinations, planning the route to the target, stealthing over Hitman style, and sticking blades up their arse, they're great fun. It's just that it takes way too long to get to those moments. First you have to walk all the way down from your home base to the top of a fucking mountain at the start of every fucking mission. Then you have to make your way through the target city, pausing occasionally to nut the lepers Glaswegian style. Then you're forced to do a few errands around the place, which are basically the same 3 side quests over and over again. And when you do finally get to stab someone up, it's all bookended by long, wordy, unskippable cutscenes. Even after the stabbing, you have to sit through a prolonged conversation with the victim. You'd think having a spike shoved into the throat would impede one's ability to soliloquize, but you just can't shut these twat mouths up.
Things like slow climbing, repetitive missions, the enforcement to ride to the cities first time you visit them, moving slowly in front of guards to not get exposed, and that you have to fight every time you get caught, were probably a turn-off for most people, depending on what mindset they play the game in.
But all this process is just tedious. I mean, how often do you want to sit there and say, eavesdrop, or pickpocket? It's just, it takes forever to get all this stuff done.
I think that the people who entered the game with the mindset that they could kill everything and be the badass that they might have felt Altair was, are those who thought the game ultimately became tedious. This is why I believe that the combat should be avoided at all costs. Playing the game thinking that the combat is the last way out, only to be used when you have to, makes the game flow so much better. I once mistakenly tried to assassinate an oncoming guard during an escort mission. The result was that the guards outside the quest started paying attention to me, and I ended up killing a lot of people instead of killing very few and being done with the investigation quicker. If you do this almost every time you get spotted, that is, enter into combat, I understand why you think that the game is slow and tedious. We have finally come to the last part of this video. What do I think of the new games? I suppose it's quite obvious now that the first Assassin's Creed was my favorite, so what do I think the other games do so wrong? My main issue is that no other game after the first Assassin's Creed have been so story driven. They've all added something else to detract from the main plot and stretched the game out in, my opinion, needlessly. Weapons to upgrade, a villa to maintain, art to purchase, a creed to look after, crafting of weapons, a boat to sail, hunting, and an entire village to work on, etc. This seems to be what the new Assassin's Creed are about now.
Alright, so we're currently at one of the forts that I was able to capture, one of the many side quests that you've got in this game to sink your time. You can take over a fort, it will give you a spawning point, it will also generate some assassination missions, so I think we're going to take a few of those. Now, you might notice I've got a boat. Well, a lot of what goes on in this game is based around your boat, and trust me, that is a very good thing indeed. If you are sick of the Assassin's Creed formula, you will be happy to know that you will spend an awful lot of time basically sinking ships instead of stabbing people with the same sodding QTE sequence over and over again.
As big and beautiful as the world is, you can't really touch or interact with it in any meaningful way. If, for example, you want to get some wood to upgrade your weapons or equipment, it's not a case of picking up an axe and heading into the woods like a real RPG. You have to find a transportation unit and steal it from them. We can hunt animals to get their pelts, so why can't we chop down trees to get wood or gather up rocks? And what about survival elements like food and water and herbs and medicine? There's not really any survival elements to this game at all.
I think the addition of all of this has had a negative effect on the game's writing. Everything that gets added to a game has required money and time to complete. And in regards to Assassin's Creed, I think that the choice to add more gameplay related things and other side things or side quests as some would call them has had a negative impact on the game's writing. This is why I think that the lack of interesting investigation was maybe not good, but worked in the favor for this game. Assassin's Creed didn't ultimately strive to have fun gameplay. Its mission was to tell a compelling story, which it succeeded to do. The choice to focus on a story led to other parts of the game suffering, and in the case of Assassin's Creed, it was the gameplay. Personally, I'm very happy the creators made this choice of focusing on the story instead of the gameplay, because no other Assassin's Creed has come close to having as much of a focused story with interesting characters as this one. And mainly, no other game has made me feel as passionately about it as this one. With Assassin's Creed 2, the only person you see more than a couple of times is Leonardo da Vinci. The rest you just meet a couple of times and then you move on. The relationships are superficial and the personalities of the people you meet are practically never shown. Compare Altair with Ezio. Altair has a logical story arc and very defined personality traits. What traits do Ezio have? How much of a human does Ezio feel? I can't really say I feel for him as a person a lot. Allow me to paraphrase a friend who had this to say about Ezio.
Ezio has this huge, fucking trail empire. He can climb. He can use a halberd, and a sword, and a crossbow, and he can fuck a girl while performing his assassinations. He is a Mary Sue. I don't know what the fuck was going through their brains, but there must have been a key personnel that just left the project between Assassin's Creed 1 and Assassin's Creed 2, because they had a vision in Assassin's Creed 1, but they fucked it and threw it out the back door in the second game.
The internet seems to disagree with me though. Take that earlier mentioned article as an example. According to that article, Ezio was the best assassin, and that also seemed true for these people. Okay, let's move on. Another way I think the new Assassin's Creed game tried to hook us players instead of writing a good story is by adding more arbitrary things that doesn't matter. Numbers that we can see an increase in, multiple weapons that have no difference, and gimmicks like hunting and trading. We can see our money increase, we can see our current damage and what the costs for upgrades are. The human psyche reacts to that and makes us want to progress, even though the progression is unimportant. That's an easier way to attract interest to a game instead of writing an intriguing plot and characters that some people might just not get interested in or even understand. Can I concede that the other games have done anything well? Since I only played up until Assassin's Creed 3, the thing I felt was done decently was the story of Subject 16. However, when I played Revelations, the ending of that turned out to be disappointing. Finally, I'm done. One thing I've realized while doing this is that I will always have more to write. There's always more to expand on. I once saw a 7-hour video analysis of Pokemon Omega Ruby. I don't know if I would find enough stuff to talk about for 7 hours, but I'm definitely sure that I could make this video longer than it is at the moment. In one point in the writing process, I thought that I could really cut both the gameplay and setting part and solely focus on the story, because that's honestly what appeals to me the most. However, I realized that I might not convince more people to try the game if I only talk about what's perceived as good or what I believe is good. So I went over it all. Kind of ironically, I think that instead of me talking about this game and showing you the game, I think you should play it. Hopefully I've laid the foundation of how I view Assassin's Creed, and maybe you think that you would find some enjoyment out of it. So if you now decide to play it for yourself or watch a Let's Play of it even, you might view the game differently from what you have before, and you could expand and find new meanings in the details that I have decided to leave out of this video. Because I will never be able to convey the same experience as the game itself can, because this is just a video.